If the Earth was shrunk down to the size of this globe, you couldn't even find Mount Everest. You ever see those globes where you can feel the bumps on them, you can feel the mountains? That's baloney. They have to greatly exaggerate those mountains. If you shrank the Earth down to the size of a cue ball to play pool with, the Earth would be rounder and smoother than the cue ball. I mean, a 5-mile mountain on an 8,000-mile Earth is insignificant. We talked about raising the oceans greatly changes the shapes of the continents, and so does lowering the oceans. I think these erosion marks happen, these erosion canyons and things happen after the flood.
Okay, you can believe whatever you want, but it doesn't make it correct. You're wrong.
Minneapolis, for instance, is 670 feet above sea level. Well, the Mississippi River runs from Minneapolis to New Orleans. It's about 1,150 miles away. As it runs, the Mississippi drops 670 feet in 1,150 miles. That's 7 inches every mile. The Mississippi has to run a full mile to drop 7 inches.
Oh my God, dude. This is some flat earth shit right here. This is the type of shit that flat earthers say to justify their beliefs. A lot of the time, this is incorrectly calculated. We'll see if he lays down a correct calculation for us here, but I get the feeling he's not going to. I remember going through this whole calculation forever ago.
Very low slope, very gently moving, generally. If you built a dam across Grand Canyon, a really big lake would fill in behind it. Textbooks say over millions of years, the Colorado River carved Grand Canyon from solid rock. I don't think so. I've studied Grand Canyon pretty actively. Grand Canyon had to form.
Studying is not the same as coming up with coming up with propagandistic lies about. They're different.
As a result of enormous erosion, as we covered on video 4, and you saw in Walt Brown's hydroplate theory video clip there. Grand Canyon is kind of puzzling because the river loops back and forth, but it also has steep sides. Now, a looping river like the Mississippi is usually indication of, low slope, gradually sloping ground, so the river loops back and forth. Steep sides usually indicates fast-moving river on high slope. Grand Canyon has both, steep sides and loops and meanders. And the evolutionists will say, wow, I wonder how that river made that canyon.
No, I think we have a pretty clear understanding of how the Grand Canyon was created.
The river didn't make that canyon. The flood made Grand Canyon very, very quickly.
The guy's concept of the world around him is just fucking wild. Seriously.
One catastrophe can really rearrange the real estate. In 1964, there was an earthquake in Alaska that dropped sections of neighborhoods down 40 or 50 feet. I was at Turnagain Heights preaching up there, I'm going up there again this September into Anchorage, Alaska. The incredible damage done just in a few seconds to that community. When Mount St. Helens blew its top, the whole north side of the mountains slid down into the valley. My sister lived up near there when it happened. This whole top of the mountain slid off to the side, uncorked the volcano, and steam and ash came shooting out of the volcano at about 100 miles an hour. This ash cloud covered the countryside.
It was pretty bad. My grandpa, I'm pretty sure he lived close to Connecticut, and he traveled for a while so that he would be able to reach a point where he could collect some of the Mount St. Helens ash, and he did. I don't think it made it to Connecticut, obviously, but he did manage to travel a little ways to collect the ash. It was a really big deal. Let me see if I can find out how far the ash traveled. During the 9 hours of vigorous eruptive activity from May 18th, 1980, about 540 million tons of ash from Mount St. Helens fell over an area of more than 22,000 square miles. Strong high-altitude winds carried the ash east-northeasterly at an average speed of about 60 miles an hour. By 9:45 a.m., it had reached Yakima, Washington, and by 11:45, it was over Spokane, Washington. Areas as far east as Spokane were plunged into darkness by noon, with 0.5 inches of ash falling. Wow, that's scary, dude. The maximum extent, it traveled as far away as Alberta, Canada, and Minnesota and Oklahoma got some. God damn, that's pretty far. Increasingly thin layers, eventually just fine dust detectable by air pollution monitoring systems, made it further out. But Spokane, Washington, 140 miles, half an inch. That's impressive.
My sister got about 6 inches in her yard. 60-some people died as a result of Mount St. Helens blowing all this ash and steam all over the neighborhood. Some of the ash landed in New York City. Most of it landed in this pattern you can see here on this map. Mount St. Helens, the day of the devastation. There was pyroclastic flows that flowed where the red is indicated there, mudflow deposits where the brown is, debris avalanche deposits, lateral blast, just a blast of steam and energy coming out, knocked trees down in the light brown area there. And Mount St. Helens was a small volcano by volcano standards, nothing like Krakatoa in Indonesia. As the swirling mass came down the mountainside, it automatically sorted into layers.
Again, like he's talking about like the whole liquefaction thing again that he talked about earlier or whatever. Yes, things do sort. Of course, obviously, things sort. We all knew that things sort. When you shake up a jar with things of different levels or different densities or whatever, they sort. Yes, obviously, of course. That does not explain the geologic column being in the order that it's in, because it's not even sorted by density.
This mud flow flowing down the mountain covered up blocks of ice that were blown off the volcano when the eruption took place. Here's a semi half buried in mud. It blew enough mud out that everybody on Earth can have a ton of it. It would fill a 10 cubic yard dump truck every second, 24 hours a day for 600 years. That's how much mud was moved out of that volcano. As the mud flowed down, it flowed over blocks of ice that were as big as a house because they were blown off the volcano. It used to be covered by glaciers. Beautiful, beautiful mountain.
I don't understand what point he's trying to make here. I don't understand how this proves young Earth creationism at all.
These blocks of ice under this hot mud exploded, making erosion pits. This happened in a few seconds. Now, some teacher's going to bring his kids here someday and say, boys and girls, you see this erosion along the side of this pit? This took millions of years.
No, we can tell when something takes millions of years and when it's instantaneous. This isn't like a problem that we can't resolve, obviously. Kent Hovind is just like making fun of science here. Tell me again that you love science, Kent. He's such a shithead, dude. Seriously. Can't he just be honest, intellectually honest about things?
No, teacher. My daddy saw this happen. Took about 50 seconds. The landslide of May 8th buried the river and the highway to Spirit Lake to an average depth of 100 feet. It also buried most other drainages in the 23 square miles of the upper Toutle Valley and plugged the river's mouth. For 22 months, the water had no established path to the lower waterway. Then on March 19th, 1982, an eruption melted a large snowpack that had accumulated in the crater over the winter. The waters mixed with loose material on the slopes of the mountain created an enormous mud flow. In 9 hours, while no one watched, happened overnight, the mud flow carved an integrated system of drainages over much of the valley and reopened the way to the Pacific Ocean. The drainages included at least 3 canyons 100 feet deep. One is nicknamed the Little Grand Canyon of the Toutle because it's a 1/40th scale model of the Grand Canyon.
Again, he's going through like a giant list of cases where things formed or whatever, but none of this disproves evolution. None of it proves that the Grand Canyon could have formed in a short period of time. None of it disproves the geologic column or any of that shit. Like, I don't get the point that he's getting at here. It's just completely full of shit.
The water was backed up behind the mudslide. When it got too deep, it went over the top. Carved out canyons in a hurry. One canyon is 1,000 feet wide, 140 feet deep. Happened in a few hours.
No, it didn't. The energy necessary to carve it out in a few hours would have vaporized all life on Earth. This is nonsense.
Once water starts going over a dam, it'll erode out things very, very quickly. You've got one right near here, Grassy Valley, north of Dayton, Tennessee, where the water goes, the whole area drains down into a big hole and then comes out probably 8 miles away in a cave not too far from Dayton. I went spelunking in there with Kurt Wise, who teaches up at Bryan College. We went in that cave, spent a whole lifetime, or many years studying this. This used to be a cave that went probably all the way down to Chattanooga area, and it's now all collapsed back. Just about 5 miles of it is left, is all. If you go to Georgia, south of Columbus, Georgia, there's in a town called Lumpkin, Georgia.
Okay, Lumpkin, Georgia. Love the name. Top tier shit. Is it real, is my question.
There's a huge canyon area there. It's a state park. This great big canyon area started as a result of, they think, of the Methodist Church not putting gutters on their building back in 1830, and it started causing a little gully, and the gully got bigger and bigger and bigger, and now it's several hundred acres of eroded ground, started it since 1830.
Again, I don't feel the need to go through every single one of these because this is just fictitious. But let's hit this one. The gutter story is a local folklore that isn't supported by historical evidence. He claims that the Providence Canyon, the Little Grand Canyon in Lumpkin, Georgia, was formed in just a few years because a Methodist church didn't put gutters on their roof, and the water runoff carved out this massive canyon. Here's what actually happened. Historical accounts indicate the canyon began forming in the early 1800s as a result of poor soil management practices. Native forest cover had been cleared so the land could be farmed, and early 19th century farmers in this region took no measures to avoid soil erosion. Small gullies formed and rapidly grew deeper and more extensive. By 1850, ditches 3 to 5 feet deep had been cut into the land. In 1830, the land was used for farming. Farmers decided to plow up and down hills rather than following the contours of the land, which caused soil erosion. By the 1850s, about 20 years later, they started to see 4 to 5 foot gullies at the bottom. Here's the church connection. Local folklore says that trickles of water running down old Native American trails started the erosion. Other stories say that water running off a barn built by the Patterson family in 1855, or perhaps off the local schoolhouse roof, caused the problem. The church's actual role. Providence Canyon got its name from Providence Methodist Church, established around 1832. A church building and a schoolhouse originally stood on that land and now lies between the main gorges of the canyon. In 1859, a new church building was erected across the road from the canyon because the erosion had gotten too close. So the church didn't cause the canyon. It had to be moved because the canyon, caused by widespread poor farming practices, was threatening to undermine it. Here's why this is incorrect. It's eroding soft, unconsolidated sediment, not solid rock. Solid rock erosion takes millions of years. We're talking about dirt erosion, basically. Yes, dirt can be formed out by streams nearly instantaneously, of course. Rock erosion is different. You can't convince me that he doesn't know that. You cannot convince me that he's saying this honestly, with honest and good intent. He knows what he's doing here is a lie, right? He knows that he's lying. He has to.
100 acres of eroded ground started it since 1830.
Is eroded ground, not eroded rock, but eroded sediment.
When you go down into the canyons near Mount St. Helens, you will see erosion. It was incredible there, and it has the sides of the canyon are stratified, nice, neat layers. They say, now wait a minute, all this mud flowed in here at one time. Why is it stratified? Well, because moving mud automatically stratifies. Get a jar of dirt, add some water to it, and shake it up and set it down. It settles into layers for you.
Again, he already covered this like 16 different times. The layers of the geologic column are not from densest to least dense. That's how it would separate out if it were actually being shaken up and set down like in a jar.
Very quickly. At the bottom of that big canyon is a little tiny creek called the Tootle River, about from me to the TV right there, 20 feet wide. That little river did not make that big canyon, okay? And that little river at the bottom of the Colorado, of Grand Canyon, did not make the Grand Canyon either. I'm
sorry, it just did. I know you don't like that, but that's what it is. The water table was, once had way more water flowing through it, and now it has less water flowing through it. It's like in one of the earlier sections, he said the Colorado River has no delta. There is no like outlet or whatever. Yes, there is. Yes, there is. There's evidence of a river delta. You're just lying.
It was formed by a lot more water than that. So the textbooks are lying to you when they say that river made that canyon.
He's pretending that it was this exact same amount of water every single time. It's just delusion.
Mount St. Helens, when it blew, also blew down bazillions of trees all over the neighborhood. Trees were blown down. It was unbelievable how many trees were blown down. They blocked up rivers, just incredible damage. You can see the huge semis here next to those giant trees out there in Oregon and Washington State.
Okay, I'm calling bullshit on this one. This looks like popsicle sticks and a little toy truck. I'm having a hard time believing this at all.
The trees were hauled out as many as they could. They hauled out thousands and thousands of truckloads of trees and just rescued about 10% of the wood. So many trees were blown into Spirit Lake that you can actually walk across the lake. 2,000 acres of floating wood on
I doubt it, but okay.
the lake, on Spirit Lake. Scuba divers went under this floating log mat and noticed something very interesting. Some of the trees are floating in the upright position.
Again, doubt it, but okay.
They're getting waterlogged. The root end's going to sink down. As they're floating in the upright position, they
Waterlogged. Get it? You get it, right? These logs are getting waterlogged in the water? Sick fucking zinger, Kent.
As they're floating in the upright position, they slowly sink and stick in the mud at the bottom. Many of the trees in Mount St. Helens, in the Spirit Lake there area.
Yeah, he covered this in a previous section as well. The logs in the Mount St. Helens Spirit Lake area are going to eventually become those logs of petrified trees that are standing up through multiple rock layers in the geologic column, because this is how they form. It's like the guy, he has to know, right? It's like he knows he's full of shit and he's gonna lie and twist and propagandize anyway.
Are already being covered by sediments and beginning to petrify. And it just happened 20 years ago.
They are beginning to petrify, which will take a very, very, very long time. But the process is starting. Are you saying that the process can't even start for like billions of years? Like, what are you even talking about? You're so full of shit.
Oftentimes, all over the world, petrified trees are found in the vertical position.
I haven't decided if Kent is a true believer or just a con man. Either way, he's still a liar. I think he's both. I'm very confident that he is both a con man and a true believer. I think that he knows that the things that he's saying are lies, and he is conning people for Jesus because he wants to bring people to Jesus, and he thinks the best way to bring them to Jesus is to lie. That's my take on him.
Petrified, standing up, running through multiple rock layers. The flood is the only explanation for that.
No, it isn't. Again, the Spirit Lake thing in, near Mount St. Helens is exactly how that formed. Like, we understand flawlessly how that works.
We cover much more on that on videotape number 4 about petrified trees in the standing position. When that petrified tree falls down, it's going to break up into logs. I don't know if you ever cut down a tree for firewood or not, but when you cut a tree down, it does not break up into logs for you automatically.
Okay.
How many notice that phenomena when you cut the tree down? Okay. It had to happen when the tree was petrified standing and then fell over as the dirt eroded away from it. Scuba divers here are going under this log mat to see what's going on. The logs are bouncing into each other as the wind blows around, and they're knocking all the bark off. At the bottom of Spirit Lake, there's a layer of bark about 3 feet thick. If it gets buried by any more debris, it's going to turn to coal. Atheists say, well, it takes millions of years to form coal. No, it doesn't. Coal can be formed in a few hours. There have been many experiments done where they form coal very quickly.
Again, I'm not sure if you can form coal quickly. Possibly. I'm not discounting that as a possibility, but it's like diamonds. You can form diamonds rapidly in a lab. That doesn't mean they form rapidly like that in nature. They don't. Diamonds take millions of years to form naturally. So this is just complete bullshit. Just a reminder, I would really appreciate it if you guys checked out my Patreon. If you're not going to donate, you don't have to, but follow me there at the very least. owenmorgan.com/Patreon. Just in case something happens with the government or whatever. It would be really good if you had some way to connect with me and my content. I'm really concerned about that. And maybe you should consider that for other creators too.
During the flood, you'd get log mats as big as Texas floating around, where lots of insects could survive for the whole flood, by the way, where a human could not. Insects could survive a flood outside the ark. But these logs...
They could. Where are they going to land? What are they going to eat? How would insects survive the flood? Exactly. Precisely. Like, everything out of the guy's mouth is a lie. Everything. It's just pure unadulterated delusion.
Mats will float around, and they're going to leave behind a debris trail. It's interesting. Coal is nearly always found in layers, seams, coal seams, like in Kentucky or Illinois. I debated Jeannie Scott, the president of an atheist organization, and she said there are 80 layers of coal in the Midwest. She's right. She said if you look at the amount of coal in the world, the entire biomass or all the plants of the world today could not form that much fossil fuel. She's right again. She said, don't you see, there had to be a lot of time to make all this coal. No, she's wrong about that.
Yeah, so here we have, once again, his argument that Earth was created last Thursday by God to make it look like it is really millions of years old when it's only a week old. That's his argument. I mean, I want to take this to its logical conclusion. That's his position. That's what he believes.
What there were was big log mats floating around during the flood. They would drift back and forth with the tides and the wind, and they would leave behind debris trails separated by sediments, and then debris trails of logs and wood and bark. And you can get 80 layers of coal in one flood. There's a coal mine in Montana. The coal is 200 feet thick and covering 10,000 square miles. In the roof of one coal mine, they find dinosaur tracks. They're digging out the coal, and they look up at the ceiling, and there are dinosaur tracks in the ceiling. Well, during the flood, the dinosaurs were walking around probably in shallow water.
All right, let's find out about this one. He is technically correct that there are hundreds, actually thousands, of dinosaur tracks on the ceiling of coal mines in Utah, but he's completely wrong about what this means. Here's the claim. Hovind says hundreds of dinosaur tracks are found on the ceiling of the Kenilworth coal mine in southeast Utah, and he uses this as evidence for Noah's flood, supposedly showing dinosaurs and coal forming rapidly together. Here's what's actually true. Thousands of natural casts of dinosaur footprints occur in the roof surface of mines in upper Cretaceous coal in east central Utah. The specimens range in length from 28 to 87 centimeters. Most are three-toed forms with about 14 dinosaur taxa probably responsible for producing the specimens. The wide, rounded three-toed tracks were made by duck-billed dinosaurs, hadrosaurs, such as Prosaurolophus, I think. Long three-toed tracks were made by carnivorous dinosaurs, and short four-toed tracks are made by horned dinosaurs, such as Chasmosaurus. Mapping of the tracks on the mine ceiling gives a glimpse into dinosaur behavior, with the abundance of hadrosaur tracks suggesting these were herding animals, possibly for group protection. So yes, there are thousands of dinosaur tracks on coal mine ceilings, but here's why this destroys the flood model. Here's how the tracks formed. This takes time. The tracks formed when sand from floods filled the footprints made by dinosaurs walking in a swamp. The coal was made from the buildup over thousands of years of partially decayed plants called peat on the bottom of stagnant swamps. The preservation of these footprints was a happy accident of sand filling up the prints soon after they were made. Millions of years later, when the decaying swamp plants were compressed into coal, the sand, itself pressed into sandstone, held the shape of the foot. The dinosaurs walk across peat swamp. They leave footprints on the soft peat. Floods bring sand that fills the footprints. More peat accumulates on top. Over thousands of years, the peat turns to coal. It takes 10 feet of peat to make 1 foot of coal, roughly. The sand-filled footprints became sandstone casts. Millions of years later, miners dig out the coal from below, leaving the sandstone cast hanging from the ceiling. That is really interesting, actually. Wow, that is so interesting. There's so much interesting shit about, science and all of this. And Kent Hovind is, dead set on denying it. Scientists just found a way to form diamonds without extreme pressure and extreme heat. I just read a journal article about it earlier, and your mention of forming diamonds made me think about it. Here's the article with the DOI article linked within. Okay, interesting. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's it's such an interesting subject, and it's so interesting how the world operates, right? I don't know. It's just crazy to me.
Ceiling. Well, during the flood, the dinosaurs were walking around probably in shallow water, stepping on all this debris, this rotting wood, and left their tracks behind.
It was not rotting wood. It was peat. It was like plants. So I guess, yeah, I suppose one could call it like rotting wood or whatever. It's peat. 10 feet of peat is required to make 1 foot of coal.
Got filled in by sediments right after they got there. Petrified trees in Alabama are standing up, running through 2 different coal seams. Oftentimes, coal seams you dig along for a while, and pretty soon they come together. Branching coal seams. Absolute proof they formed very quickly.
That is not absolute proof of jack shit. What are you even talking about? This doesn't prove anything. You're just making shit up right now? I don't understand.
Not millions of years different in age, okay? This coal mine in Montana was 200 feet thick, coal. And human artifacts are found in coal from time to time. Here's a bell found inside a lump of coal. Here's a vessel found in solid rock, supposed to be 600 million years old.
Yeah, we talked about this previously. There's famously a kettle that was supposedly found in coal or whatever. There's no evidence of any of it. Like, literally none of it. This whole bit about how these bells and kettles and everything, all of this was found in coal. No. There was a letter from a guy in, I think, 1948 who claims to have found an iron kettle in some coal from 1912. So I think he wrote it in 1948, and it was about something that he had found in 1912 or something. There's no evidence of it. He didn't provide us with anything that we can verify in any way, shape, or form. It goes completely against our understanding of how the world works. Like, literally everything about it is nonsense. It's the bottom line.
A lady in Illinois broke open a lump of coal. There's a gold chain inside, 10 inches long. A carved stone found in Iowa in a coal mine. Here's an iron pot found in a coal mine in Oklahoma.
No, this is the one I was talking about. The iron pot found in a coal mine. No, this is not true.
Here's the sole of a shoe found in Nevada inside a piece of coal. The Bible says the waters assuaged or sank down, and the waters returned from off the earth continually. If a section of the earth sank down, the water would rush in to fill in the hole, but then it would slosh back and forth for a while. There would be tidal waves going back and forth. The Bible says in Genesis 8, the waters were going and returning. That's the Hebrew phrase halak vashab, going and returning. I believe layers of sedimentary mud were laid out during the flood, and then the mountains arose, the valleys sank down, they would be bent and twisted, and then erosion would take off the surface, depositing more layers on top.
Okay, well, you're incorrect. That's not how it worked, and we can scientifically prove that. But he's going to completely ignore the scientific proof because he doesn't give a shit about science. In fact, he fucking hates science and pretends to like it.
That's why we have what's called an unconformity in geology, best explained by Noah's flood. The Bible says the ark rested in the 7th month. Noah didn't get out till the 13th month. He stayed in for 6 extra months. Why? Well, for one thing, there's nothing to eat outside. Number two, the ground is...
But there is something to eat inside? I mean, I can't help but point out that, like, he brought 7 of the clean and 2 of the unclean animals. We're talking literally millions of species around, but being super extra ultra mega generous, let's just say that he brought a total of 30,000 species. I mean, that's literally impossible even for that, but I'm just being generous. Say 30,000 species, 2 of the clean, 7 of the unclean, and you think you're going to survive off of that? What did the anteaters eat? How did you bring ants? The entire planet was underwater for a full 12 months. Ants cannot survive underwater for 12 months. He says there's no food outside. So nothing could have survived outside then, is what you're saying. I mean, God, the flood story is so fucking insane. It's so fascinating. Like, the story itself is so interesting. You don't have to make shit up to try to fit it into, like, real life. Just accept it as an interesting, cool little story that's fictitious. Just accept it as that. And say, wow, what a neat, fictitious little story. I said this previously, but I'm going to say it again. Do you know what the Book of Genesis was, actually? It's called antiquity literature. Antiquity literature is basically campfire stories. So people go around and they try to take a cultural snapshot to get an understanding for what people believed and when and why. If you were to go around to a campfire today and ask people, what do you believe and why? They would maybe tell you a story about the scorpion and the frog. Or the scorpion and the fox, I suppose some people say. You know, the scorpion wants to cross a river. He goes up to a frog and he says, hey, can you take me across the river on your back? Frog says, no, if I take you, you're going to sting me and we'll both die. And scorpion says, no, I swear I'm not going to do that. Frog says, all right, let's go. They get on the frog's back. Frog is halfway across the river. Scorpion stings him and he says, why'd you do that? Now we're both going to die. And scorpion says, because I'm a scorpion and that's what scorpions do. It's a moral lesson that has talking animals in it and everything. It hits all of the major boxes for the Book of Genesis. It's the same type of shit. And as a matter of fact, there are different versions of it. In one version, it's a fox that carries the scorpion across, not a frog. So there are different versions, and that explains the type of thing you see in the Book of Genesis, where we have 2 different versions of the Noah's flood story. Did you know that? 2 different versions of Noah's flood in the Book of Genesis. The first one is in, I think, chapter 2, and the second one is in like chapter 5 or something. In one version of Noah's flood, it says he took 2 of each animal on. In another one, it says he took 2 of the clean, 7 of the unclean. In one of them, it says the clean animals chew cud, or the unclean animals chew cud. I don't remember. And he categorized rabbits that way, incorrectly. Rabbits don't chew cud. That's where they chew something and they swallow it, and then they regurgitate it and chew it again later. That's what cud is. Rabbits don't do that. It was campfire stories that people told to each other. That's what the book of Genesis was, antiquity literature. It was never intended to be interpreted as real, like actual literal stories that really actually literal happened. Anyway, let's continue with Kent Hovind here. He's just completely full of shit.
Number 2, the ground is still muddy, and the water was still going and returning. It's not safe to get out of the boat yet. Probably Noah hit bottom, cut off the anchor stones, and then the ark got picked up and moved a few miles and resettled again by another wave coming back as the waters were going and returning. We cover about the Noah's Ark anchor stones on video number 3 of our series.
I covered 1, 2, and 3 like many, many years ago, but I'm thinking I'm going to go back and cover them again after going through all of this. We're going to circle back around maybe and hit 1, 2, and 3 because this is fascinating. I'm sorry. I just enjoy this so much.
And there's nothing outside to build your house with anyway. The Bible says the waters decreased continually. So in the Hovind theory, the ice caps gradually melted back, slowly raising the ocean levels. During the first few hundred years, there was time to spread out around the world. God came down, confused the languages at the Tower of Babel. People said, I'm out of here. They took off, spread around the world, had their kids and grandkids. And over a few hundred years, the water came up and they ended up trapped where they are today. There's a great book about the spreading of populations around the world after the flood. This book called Noah to Abram, The Turbulent Years. It's in our catalog. You can order that.
The turbulent years. Noah to Abram, the turbulent years. That's, I'm sorry, absolutely fucking insane.
So people came across to America from both sides. Came across the Bering Land Strait, and you can walk from England to Iceland to Greenland to America if the water was lower.
Oh my God, dude. I didn't know that he made this brazen, wild, evidenceless, insane claim that people got to the Americas by walking from England to America because, you see, there was no water on the earth before Noah. That is fucking insane.
As the ice caps melt back, they leave behind the obvious features that we see. Yes, there really was an ice age, best explained by the flood. And then in the days of Peleg, the earth was divided. Peleg was born 100 years...
You know, he could have just as easily denied that the ice age existed, right? I mean, it obviously did exist, but he makes shit up all the time and claims it's real, like completely fabricated out of nothing. Why did he specifically choose to accept that the ice age existed? Why didn't he just say, nope, that was fake? Bizarre.
After the flood, I think his daddy named him that because something had changed. So there are 4 theories of what the days of Peleg means. What does it mean divided? What was divided? One theory is the languages and nations were divided at the Tower of Babel. Second theory is the continents moved. I don't buy that one. Third theory is the water came up from melting ice. That would divide the continents. That's probably the one I would fall in, the category I would believe.
Wait, water came up from ice melt and divided the high spots? Okay.
Number 4 theory is that the land was surveyed. There got to be so many people, they said, look, let's just draw some lines on the ground here, okay? This is my yard, and that's your yard, and let's put a rock right here and a rock right here. They started surveying the land and dividing the land up.
I'm sorry? You think that neighbors decided to build little fences, and they built their fences so much that it created new oceans? Is that what he's saying?
That's natural. You got to do that eventually as populations grow.
Look at it. He's got the book of Jasher quoted here again. He says, I don't know if it's legitimate. I don't know if this is the original, but it might be. And he's using it basically as scripture here, right? This is fucking wild, dude. Oh my God.
So as the melting ice went into the oceans ended up deeper, wider, and colder.
My old high school nickname.
Cold water absorbed CO2, so that would take away some of the greenhouse protection, and lifespans were shorter. The deepest point in the English Channel is only 150 feet deep, not even from here to the back wall. So we get these ideas, wow, it's blue, therefore it's water. Yeah, it is, but some of it's deep and some of it's not very deep. I think the flood's the best explanation for that. As the ocean filled in, it would gradually get too full and flow over into the Mediterranean Sea. Probably the Straits of Gibraltar were washed out as the water flowed over and backfilled the Mediterranean.
Dude, don't you love how he uses the word probably constantly? There is literally no evidence for a single thing that he has laid down here. Not one shred. And he just keeps saying probably, maybe, I think, over and over again.
Then it got too full.
By the by, don't forget, check out my Patreon, owenmorgan.com/Patreon. Don't forget, check out my shop, owenmorgan.com/shop. Check out cultarchive.org. That's where you can look at, like, cults, the history of cults and their story, and you can take a cult test and things like that. I'd really appreciate that very much. You don't have to follow, or you don't have to donate on Patreon, but if you could just follow me, it would mean so much to me. Oh yeah, and every now and then I do like Q&As with people. Soon I'm going to be doing a Q&A, I'm thinking, with either Genetically Modified Skeptic or his wife Taylor, or maybe both. I asked them, they said they were down.
By the way, guys, check out my new shop, owenmorgan.com/shop. I have a bunch of really cool designs on there.
Backfilled the Mediterranean. Then it got too full and backfilled past Sicily. Maybe that's why they're finding underwater cities. For the first few hundred years, people would be building their cities in some of these areas, and then all of a sudden the water starts coming up. Hey guys, we got to get out of here. They had to abandon their cities. Underwater cities are found quite a few places. As the water filled in the Black Sea, they had to abandon the whole civilization there. Underwater cities were found in the Black Sea, under 150 feet of water.
Let's find out. Cities found in the Black Sea. Coastal settlements have been discovered underwater in the Black Sea, including sections of the ancient Greek cities of Mesembria, northern Nesbar, Bulgaria, Accra off Crimea, and Phanagoria. These sites include submerged fortification walls, towers, harbors, and various artifacts. This doesn't prove literally anything. If he's using these discoveries to support Noah's flood, he's completely misrepresenting the evidence. These are just archaeological discoveries dating, hang on. These are just archaeological discoveries. This does not prove the flood by any stretch of the imagination. Some of these submerged parts of Nesebar are at depths between 4 feet and 15 feet underwater.
They didn't build them there. And today the earth still shows the effects of this flood to remind us God hates sin. Whenever you're
But that's the thing. There is no evidence of a global flood. There just isn't. You can claim there is all you want, but there isn't. God, this is just fucking insane. The whole thing is insane.
When you're gas in your car, you can think, boy, this came as a result of Noah's flood. This electricity running these lights here is powered by coal, probably. They're burning up some of the trees that were growing in the Garden of Eden, in the pre-flood world. Every time you see articles in the paper about dinosaur bones, it can remind you of the flood in the days of Noah. See, God left enough evidence behind.
Wait. I'm sorry. Hang on a second. I thought the dinosaurs were around with humans. I was under the mistaken impression that dinosaurs had saddles that people used to ride them around. What happened to that little ditty of a claim?
That anybody with a brain can look around and say, boy, God, you hate sin. I better live for you. And Satan has worked very hard to take all of the evidence from the planet that shows God's flood, and he's twisted it around, and he's teaching kids today, all this evidence shows evolution.
It absolutely does. The evidence shows evolution, period. I'm sorry you don't like that, Kent, but that's what it is.
He's taken what God has created as evidence and twisting it around. I want to leave you with this fossil in your mind here. This is a fossil of a fish swallowing another fish.
Oh, and this is proof that fossils aren't, it doesn't happen instantaneously, right? Yeah, this is apparently a pretty common creationist argument. These are real fossils called aspiration fossils, and they're actually a great example of how creationists misrepresent perfectly normal geological processes. Here's what they really are. These are fossils from the Green River Formation in Wyoming, typically showing a Diplomistus or Meiopisus fish that died while trying to swallow another fish, actually a Nitia. These are known as aspiration fossils and are extremely rare. Creationist argument is these fossils prove catastrophic burial during Noah's flood because the fish didn't have the time to finish swallowing its prey before it was rapidly buried. Here's why it's wrong. Rapid burial does not mean global flood. first of all. The dating destroys their argument. These fossils are dated at 35 to 50 million years old in the Eocene period. Fish choke all the time. A fish biting off more than it can chew and choking is not an extraordinary event requiring divine intervention. Yes, it can die while it's eating, of course. Have you ever heard of choking to death before? So stupid, dude. Oh my God. Look, it's eating something, and then it unexpectedly, spontaneously died. How do things die while eating? I don't understand. I've never heard of anything dying while eating before. It's
Either that or the...
It is so fucking stupid, dude.
This is a fossil of a fish swallowing another fish. Either that or the little one is a dentist. I don't know. Okay.
Okay, to be fair, those do exist in nature. The little cleaning fish that come along and they clean the teeth of larger creatures like whales or whatever, right? I forget what they're called now. Shrimp? A certain type of shrimp?
But neither one thought they were going to die that day. The big one had the little one halfway down, and the flood came, and the mud probably covered them up, and they died.
So you think that he was alive and well and not choking to death? When he ate that fish, please, dude. You try eating underwater and see how often you choke.
The Bible says it's appointed that a man wants to die, but after this, the judgment.
Oh, now here come the fear tactics. Ready? Buckle up.
Harry Truman lived right on the side of Mount St. Helens. Tim Barron's a friend of mine from St. Louis. I'm on their show every Wednesday morning, the Tim and Al show. He told me he witnessed to Harry and tried to get him saved, and Harry wouldn't listen. Harry cussed and swore, and he said he listened, but he did not get saved.
Wait, did he curse and swear, or did he listen? I feel like those are mutually exclusive options, right?
Well, the officials came in and said, Harry, you live right on the side of Mount St. Helens. This volcano is going to explode. We would like you to move. Harry said, I've been living here all my life, and I'm staying right here. And he did. He stayed right there. He died. Harry
Okay.
was one of those they never found after the explosion. Isn't that stupid to live on the side of a volcano that's about to explode and refuse to move?
Yes. The stupid thing about that is that he was refusing to listen to scientists who have scientific knowledge about something, right?
Wouldn't listen to the warning. You know, it's just about as stupid to know, hey, God sent his angels and his messengers and his Bible and says, hey, this world's going to be destroyed. You better get saved.
Yeah, except there's literally no evidence, not a shred of evidence of literally anything that you're saying. There is evidence, or was evidence, of Mount St. Helens, like, going to explode. We had that evidence that existed, and it could be shown to the guy easily. If there was no evidence of a catastrophic, like, if somebody comes up to me and they say, there's going to be a volcano that explodes in the middle of Manhattan tomorrow. That's pretty extraordinary. That's an extraordinary claim. And I'm going to need some extraordinary evidence for that extraordinary claim, right? Obviously. Kent Hovind is telling me I don't have evidence for it. And the evidence intentionally, specifically does not exist because it wouldn't mean as much if you believed it with evidence. So you have to believe me without evidence or it doesn't matter. I'm sorry, man. That's fucking stupid. I don't buy it. That's ridiculous. Give me something, anything. I will take literally anything. I have yet to receive a shred of fucking evidence for this guy's wild, baseless, insane claims. I mean, claims that are so fucking insane that he maybe should be, like, sent to a mental institution for believing some of this shit. Seriously. This is flat earth level insane shit. Baseless, insane shit. And he's like, you're going to hell. You're going to die. And it's your fault if you do. Fuck you, Kent. Give me some evidence if you want me to believe something. Otherwise, go fuck yourself.
And people say, I don't want to get saved. I'm staying right here. Well,
no, I'd love to get saved. Give me some evidence that you can save me. Right now, you're lying to me, literally lying to me. You are telling me falsehoods that are provably false. That if you really researched this information, you would know that they were false. Somebody is lying in this equation. I'm going to assume it's you. Why do you think I should trust you when I've literally sat here for, how many hours is this? This has got to be 15 hours total, this creation seminar up to this point. Literally sat here for, say, 3 hours each through 6 seminars, so maybe 18 hours, and listen to you lie. Every 15, 20 seconds, there's a new lie. Some statements that you made, some sentences that you spoke, had 7 lies in them. Karl Marx's 2 infant children died in infancy. 2 of them died, when they were teenagers or whatever, and all this other shit. No, 3 of his children died when they were young, not in infancy. 2 of them died as adults. I mean, literally everything out of his mouth is a lie through this entire thing, through the entire seminar series. How do you expect me to believe a single word out of your fucking mouth? I'm sorry, man, but you have destroyed my trust in creationism, in Jesus, or any of that shit because of all of your lies. You say, the Colorado River doesn't have a delta. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. It does have a delta. That's just a flat-out, bald-faced fucking lie. How do you expect somebody to believe a word out of your fucking mouth when every single one of them is a lie? I don't like calling people liars, right? Because that implies a habitual practice of intentionally falsifying information to deceive people, with the intent to deceive people. And telling a lie does not make you a liar, right? It means that you told a lie. You know, a kid tells a lie all the time. No, I didn't take that cookie from the cookie jar. Doesn't make the kid a liar. They just told a little bit of a lie. But Kent Hovind is a liar. Like a habitual liar. And it's absolutely wild to me and vile and fucking disgusting that he is willing to intentionally, knowingly deceive people by telling them falsehoods to get them to believe his worldview. Why can't you prove it to us while telling the truth about things? That's how I do it. I want to convince somebody of my position on something. I just have to tell them the truth, and that's it. Why do you have to lie to convince people that you are correct? Why is that a necessary component of this whole thing? Hovind is fucking disgusting as a human being. He is a habitual liar. And the way that he acts is absolutely unforgivable. I have no goodwill or faith in this person here. None. Because he is just straight up disgusting. Honestly. He represents all that is wrong with society. Kent Hovind does. He's a colossal scumbag and a sack of shit. I don't go that hard on people very often, but he is a vile human being.
Duh, you're as dumb as Harry. You ought to give your heart to the Lord and get saved, okay?
Yeah, the rest of this sounds like it's going to be a fear-mongering fest where he's going to lie to everybody for the rest of the episode or whatever. I'm not going to bother. I'm not going to allow him to use my platform to lie to people for the next 5 minutes. Tell me what you think in the comments.